Tonight, 2016, the year that changed the world. How Brexit and Trump shook the political system to its core.
Oh, man. I was ready to go outside and start shooting my shotgun off and stuff. I mean, I was happy.
We need to get out and start, ruling Britain as Britain should be.
And what prompted this new world order?
When I was asking people, how are you going to vote? No reticence at all. I'm voting out. Why are you voting out? We've been forgotten.
Good evening and welcome to the Tonight programme. Few of us can ever remember a year quite like 2016. With Brexit, the US election, it's clear the old political order we've been used to is being shaken to its very core. So how did it all happen? Who made it happen? And where will it take us next year? Tom Bradby reports on 2016, the year that changed the world.
Let's take a trip back in time to January 2016. The new year dawns to a familiar world. An old Etonian Prime Minister is toasting his toes in front of the fire in Downing Street. It could be 1916 or 1716. Even the Prime Minister's sweater doesn't look like it's been changed for a century.
It's a new year, and with our economy growing and a strong majority government in power, Britain begins it with renewed strength.
The pound is steady. We are grimly trudging on with sorting out our colossal national deficit, and we're all a bit tired of hearing the words
Long-term economic plan.
Long-term economic plan.
But we have just voted for another 5 years of it. Our national identity, our projected journey, seems stable, settled, predictable. And then, boom.
The total number of votes cast in favour of leave was 82,000.
The night is not remains by any stretch of the imagination. Sterling has plummeted in response to the results so far. We are calling it for leave to win.
This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
We were urged to step back from the brink. We didn't. We took the leap. A giant step forward or a jump into the unknown.
I love this country, and I feel honoured to have served it.
As I travelled home from the studio that morning, there was a palpable sense of shock on both sides.
It's shameful. I'm ashamed to be British right now.
I think it's really gutting, but what can you do? I think we've let this generation down.
Couldn't have voted better. It's a long time coming. At least we get our country back now. We can sort things out and start to progress in the right way.
Absolutely blinding brilliant. The best day that this country's had for years.
This, it turns out, was the year that the analysts and the specialists, the pundits and the so-called experts were going to have to get down and eat a giant dose of humble pie. It was a very British revolution.
You could argue that what happened this year is part of a tradition that began in the village of Fobbing in Essex more than 600 years ago. Most rebellions in British or English history have really been splits in the elite. Think Magna Carta or the English Civil War. But here, at a time of rapid economic change, many working people simply decided they'd had enough and rose up against the elite. Well, honestly, isn't that exactly what we've seen in 2016?
They called it the Peasants' Revolt then. The elite has always had a knack for patronising the rest of us. You can call this whatever you like. It was a giant kick in the teeth for those in power. If plenty of us in the media, in Parliament, in metropolitan bubbles across the country did not spot this revolution coming, there's an argument to say we really should have. One man who did suspect something was in the ether was Mike Carter, a travel writer who grew up in the West Midlands. Before the referendum, he walked 340 miles from Liverpool to London, through urban sprawls and rural industrial towns. Mike wanted to find out if the economic divisions that blighted Britain in the 1980s still existed.
Support the People's March, Liverpool to London.
So we're in Warsaw town centre now, just outside the main street. And this, when I was at college here 35 years ago, this was full of shops and full of bars and full of restaurants. I was very shocked by the amount of closed down shops we see, by the amount of betting shops in the high street, by the amount of payday loan shops, by the amount of visible poverty that I saw everywhere. It's a town that's changed enormously, it seems to me, in the last 35 years. When I was on the walk, asking people, how are you going to vote? No reticence at all, I'm voting out. Why are you voting out? We've been forgotten, we've been left behind, there are no decent jobs anymore. Immigration was talked about. Politicians don't listen to us anymore. We've been completely forgotten.
In one poll this year, Walsall was ranked the worst place in Britain for community spirit. After years of industrial decline and poor job creation, morale has taken a hit here. 68% of people voted to leave in June.
I voted to leave because, you know, this country, I think we need to get it back on like it used to be, because we are losing a lot of industry, a lot of stuff's gone abroad.
We've got nothing to lose at the end of the day. We was going downhill anyhow, so there's only one way up, and that's why I voted out.
There is a debate nationally about how much immigration influenced the vote. But as Mike found out on his return, there is no doubt it was still on people's minds here.
It's overpopulated because of bringing too many people in and it's made a lot of people out of work because there isn't enough work for the local community.
We get 80% parasites, yeah. And
who are we talking about, sorry?
We're talking about the influx of foreigners, if you like, yeah, coming into the country, yeah, and they don't want to contribute.
Do many of your fellow Muslims, did they vote to leave the European Union? Did you have that conversation with many of them?
Yes, I have. Majority of them, they voted to leave.
What were their reasons they were giving?
Immigration. They think it is also impacting them also because the employment opportunities are being taken away from them. So they also voted to leave European Union.
This then was the painful cry of the people and the places that globalization has passed by.
I remember in the Remain campaign, and the Remain campaigners saying to towns like Warsaw, you know, why you should vote to stay in the European Union, because things will get worse. And the people would go, how can they get worse?
All right, some might say, quit moaning and get to work. I mean, isn't everyone struggling to get by? Well, perhaps not so much. Since the mid-90s, we have lived through the greatest boom in the history of capitalism. And in it, despite the banks actually going bust, a vast amount of wealth has ended up in a tiny number of hands. It's a world of super yachts and private jets. Modern capitalism is ruthless and efficient, and it's absolutely great if you can get in on the action. The trouble is, too many of us can't. Recently, the Governor of the Bank of England, of all people, spoke of striking inequalities, which have resulted in a sense of isolation and detachment. So is that why the revolution started?
I think the people in the Remain camp missed the mood of Britain because they didn't actually get out there and listen to people. It was all right for them, you know, their lives were cushioned by wealth and, you know, the metropolitan elite. That had absolutely no bearing on people who's, you know, working in a factory, having his hours cut, 0-hour contracts, etc. And they were looking at these people, telling them how marvellous everything was and thinking, what planet are you on?
I think it was to do with blaming something, somebody, in this case it was conveniently the European Union, for everything that had gone wrong for our country and in our lives. The fact that we were not getting richer as fast as people wanted, that was Europe's fault. The fact that we had a lot of immigration from the new Commonwealth, that was Europe's fault.
But here's a question. You can see that somewhere like Walsall is a long way from the super yacht owners, but how about comfortable, relatively affluent Rye on the south coast? Why did people here join the rebellion? You could call it the confluence of quiet voices in small towns, too rarely heard. The referendum this summer did create interesting new alliances. Traditional working-class Labour supporters voting, for example, perhaps for the first time, with traditional well-to-do Tory supporters. But there were common themes, a desire to control our own borders and our own laws, and perhaps something else too, the sense that people in places like this had been excluded from the national conversation for far too long. At Grove Farm Riding School, the whiff of rebellion lingers. Do you think this whole thing was, in fact, a good example of how the elite just got a bit detached and stopped really knowing how an awful lot of people in the country thought?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm very, very fond of their own ideas, really, without any sort of...
Not listening to
the general public, yeah.
Yeah.
But speak to the riders here long enough and you'll hear some concerns about the fallout.
I was in favour for Brexit. I was hoping that we could grasp the nettle, if you like, and get some strong leadership and be in charge of our own destiny. Now I feel let down and misled and increasingly worried about the possibilities of Brexit.
We need to get out and start, ruling Britain as Britain should be. We need to just stop talking about it and do it.
The truth is that the shock of Brexit unleashed many different emotions. For some Poles living in Birmingham, for example, the aftermath was deeply troubling.
For my daughter's school, some children say, okay, you have to leave UK now. It's not really nice when when your daughter is, for example, 14 years old. She doesn't really understand what's going on, and and sometimes it's really damage your your mentality. It was really difficult time for me. It broke my heart.
In the month of Brexit, there were 6,000 reported hate crimes in the UK. Monica and Daniel can vividly remember the atmosphere. They've been here 16 years and have grown their food business from 1 shop to 5. Britain is very much their home. But after that Brexit dawn, it did feel like a different place.
In this year, I can see a lot more anger anywhere else in the world, actually. Well, people start actually hating each other and fighting more.
We've got now even friends. They planned already to go back to Poland. They taking mortgage in Poland. I am surprised that they're going back because the kids are not that small, so they have to take them from school. So they're panicking.
As the UK spent the autumn grappling with the consequences of Brexit and what it was actually going to mean, I travelled across the Atlantic for the final stages of the US presidential race. Even after our rebellion, the consensus was it would be business as usual here. Donald Trump was just a maverick TV show host, to some a racist and misogynist who'd insulted pretty much everyone, including bona fide war heroes.
We will make America great again.
All conventional logic said he couldn't win.
Texas has been awarded to Kansas, Louisiana. Donald Trump in the state of Ohio.
This is not what almost every political expert, pundit, analyst, pollster expected this evening to end.
Thank you. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans.
This is painful, and it will be for a long time.
From the capital, we looked out once more at a nation divided.
Just so saddening to me that this could possibly happen to our nation.
This is the new American dream. I'm not sure how proud I am of being an American.
We're witnessing some kind of anti-elite revolution, rebellion, you can call it whatever you like. We saw it in Britain, we talked about it on Brexit night. But travel out to listen to those quiet voices in small places again, and you hear a totally different story.
Oh, man. I was ready to go outside and start shooting my shotgun off and stuff. I mean, I was happy. I was ecstatic.
Trump's going to bring about the golden age of America when he's president. I truly believe that.
We were just so excited when it was starting to go our way, and I said, it was wonderful, wonderful. And then we stayed up till 4 to see him make his speech. In our world, we knew our world was going to change completely.
If you want to identify the epicenter of the American uprising, then look no further than small-town Ohio, at the heart of the so-called Rust Belt. Just as in Britain, voters here crossed political and social divides to create a new coalition for Trump. Donna Calhoun was a proud part of it. She's a retiree in the suburbs of Youngstown. We first met her in September working for the Trump campaign. Back then, she felt it was do or die for America.
I really feel if Hillary Clinton would win, you'd see a revolution in this country, because people will not stand for what she stands for and what she'll try to do to us.
Now, for Donna, America has meaning again.
We built this house in 1981, could only afford 3 acres. And then 5 years later, we bought 8 acres. This is the American dream. This is what people dream of achieving in their lifetime. And we did it, and I wanted to make sure my children was able to do it. I don't trust any of the experts. I knew Trump could win. The academics, the establishment, all got it wrong.
Donna was on the winning side in 2016, but this election came with sacrifices.
This is from a friend I've had for 40 years, and she's up on the opposite side of the fence. We have said there is nothing we cannot say to each other, so I wanted you to know. I cried for my daughter, who sent me a selfie saying she's so proud to have voted for a woman. You know me well. Be well, love your granddaughters, as always. It's a shame that it would divide friends and family. This is the price I pay for not believing in her political beliefs, but I don't care, it's all worth it. The most important election of a lifetime, and they don't see it that way, and I'll never understand that.
So does Donna regret anything? In short, no.
The world is going to be thrilled to death with Donald Trump. Thrilled to death. Yeah. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. And it shows every day when I get up, because I know there's hope now.
But it is probably the understatement of the year to say not everyone was happy.
I was not surprised when Trump won, because there had not been the kind of outreach that was done during both Obama campaigns.
East Cleveland is an inner-city suburb so blighted by decades of crime and drugs that the local wildlife now roams the streets. We first met community leader Khalid Samad a month before the election. At the time, the people in his weekly prayer group were angry at a broken political system.
The system is not for us. We're not a part of this system.
It's set up to fail.
Now, days after the result, Khalid is still reeling and expecting some anger. and yet he thinks Trump's victory might force America's hand. For Khalid, there could be some upside.
I think his election is going to force a lot of people to have conversations that they had refused to have in the past, to not talk past each other or over each other, but actually to each other. Hopefully, you know, after the smoke clears and the dust settles, we can actually have a real dialogue about some of the things that are real important to this country.
So, at the end of 2016, how do we explain these earthquakes? A feeling, perhaps, that in America, here in Britain, society was changing too fast, that we were losing control of ourselves as nations, of our laws, of who and what we are. It's certainly been a year that few of us will forget in a hurry.
I feel the anger and the resentment that Remainers feel. I do feel it quite personally, and I don't think it's just going to melt with the spring of 2017. I think it's one of those national decisions which will leave millions and millions of people feeling angry and feeling that we took a wrong turning. I think it'll be a decade before this really fades.
2016 is going to prove to be historic in so many ways because it's the year that Britain revealed itself to be an independent, entrepreneurial nation, which is multicultural already, but absolutely sees the future as standing alone on the global stage, as we have done all throughout history.
All right, that's enough soul-searching. It is almost Christmas, after all. And there are plenty of people who still love us.
I don't see any changes. I think it's still friendly. I like it here. People are really friendly. When I carry a lot of luggages, people will take it for me.
Really?
On the tube, yeah. Very friendly. Is it good to say when I go into France, not a lot of people do that.
We're a lot friendlier than France. Where are you from and what brought you to the UK at this point?
We're from Taiwan and we're here because the English pound is cheap. Dropping now.
Dropping like a stone.
Yeah.
So maybe the final unanswered question of 2016 is, did we close ourselves down or open ourselves up to the world? Perhaps we'll find out in 2017.
It's been quite a year, and with the ongoing big debate around the details of Brexit and those crucial elections in France and Germany, the drama isn't over yet. There's more information on our programme on our website at itv.com/tonight. But that is it from us for 2016. After such an eventful year, have a peaceful and lovely Christmas, and we'll see you again in 2017. Till then, good evening and thanks for watching.
Well, next, Moira's troubles are far from over. There are more shocks to come in Emmerdale in a moment. Then new in just over half an hour, Ben Fogles at Castle Howard in Yorkshire, one of the settings for ITV's drama Victoria, on the Countrywise Guide to Britain at 8:30.